And anyway, so my wife asked me tonight as I was heading out, she said, you you excited about that? It's been just great. Since I left you, I literally have not had a day off 3 weeks ago. I've been cruising around Iowa, and if you ever have the chance to spend 3 weeks in Iowa, skip it. Kidding, if you're from Iowa, I'm sorry. No, I'm really sorry. 1,600 miles around Iowa. Most of the Iowans didn't even know there were 1,600 miles in Iowa. And so I was in Davenport, and Dubuque, and Des Moines, and Decorah, and they only have D letters, apparently, that's it. DeWitt, and it was a wonderful time, and so I've just been running, literally. I came back so excited, to go back, and it's actually been a great time last time. But I said, I'm going to find out if the Lord is present in that community tonight. She said, why? I said, because if they allow if they show up to listen to a Chicagoan on the week after we whip their butts, I'm going to find out real quick. So I'm not saying, I'm really happy this week. I was more than happy to drop all the cheese stuff back to my mother-in-law. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And just so you know, it was because we won Monday night, apparently. If you ask my in-laws, we won because my wife went to the game. And it's her first game ever, of any kind, ever, for anything. She has no interest whatsoever in football, sports. She doesn't want to watch it. She doesn't even want to look at a jersey. She could care less. But she had a ticket was offered to her by her girlfriends, and she went, and she even wore green. My eyes burned. So of course, now we're thinking about becoming season ticket holders. So that streak continues. Okay, so here's what tonight is about. Here's what Father had said. We talked a while back anyway about one of the major issues, and I think I shared this with your group last time, is doing what I do. And I travel all over the country, and I meet all kinds of people and get to see all kinds of things. Overwhelming majority of the questions that I get when I do is about family, about our young people, about our young church. What's happening to our church? What's happening to our young people? Where are they? They're not coming, and even those who are coming, they come begrudgingly, and then as soon as the claws of the parent are off the child, they're gone. And it hurts, and it hurts for parents that have invested years of their time, their energy in something that's very personal, to watch their own children struggle, and in some cases their grandchildren struggle with not finding value in being Catholic, or in some cases even being Christian. I don't need God, or I'll get to God whenever I need God, but outside of that, I don't have value for it. So, overwhelming number one question that I get. And so what I want to do tonight is I want to break open a little bit about family and about family life, because of course in just a couple weeks we're going to celebrate that wonderful holiday called Thanksgiving, right? And families will gather, at least a lot of families will gather, and we'll go to someone's home where maybe a turkey or ham, or if you're in Minnesota, lutefisk will be made, and which is thoroughly disgusting. But we'll cook the bird. Lutefisk is lard, basically. But anyway, so you'll have the turkey, and the families will come over. And in Happy Land, right? In Happy Land on television, when we're watching football, even the turkey bird smiles as it runs across the screen, doesn't it? Right? And for the Hallmark commercials, the holidays are a happy time for family, right? Wouldn't that be great if that were true for everybody? Wouldn't that be great? And yet we realize that if we're going to be honest, with each other as we gather in this space, the holidays, that the next 6 weeks are not joyful times. And Christmas carols are songs that we sing to a world we don't know for many of us anymore. And that will go, and I'll show up and I'll open presents, but I ain't spending any more time in this house than I have to. And that, something's gone wrong. I was reading earlier this week, I was reading some of the research, and the Food Marketing Institute conducted a poll earlier this year. Does anyone know what the percentage of average Americans are that eat dinner together? In 2013, it's literally just came out earlier this year. 2013, how many families, the average American family, percentage-wise, just give it a shot. 29, 42, it's not, it's more than 2. So it's 40%. Do you know that one generation ago, it was 80%? It was 80%. And along those same trends, does anyone know what the average length of time an American per day spends in front of the television? Apparently we struck a chord. Not 7, because they have to go to school at some point. It's almost 3, the average American. On weekends, it goes to almost 6. Which is hilarious to me every time people tell me, well, I can't volunteer because I'm so busy, I got no time. I got plenty of time. Turn off television, right? But we don't. And so let's take a good look at what's happening, at least in America. Today in America, only 40% of American families are eating dinner together, sharing a meal, face to face around the table. And at that, the Food Marketing Institute found that 40% is only doing it 2 or 3 days of the 7 per week. Added to that now the average American spends almost just a hair shy of 3 hours per day in front of the television. That does not include computers, cell phones, or any of that other stuff. Purely the television. And we wonder why we're feeling a disconnect. Not just religiously, but socially. Socially, when I work with parents, the first thing I always hear is, I don't know how to talk to my teenager anymore. And I say, well, first thing you have to understand is your teenager has changed. And teenagers, not the little kid that used to say, Mom, Dad, where are you going? Now has become this little alien creature that wants to tell you where to go, right? And I was telling them, I said, but understand, that's normal. We did it too. The body is chemically changing. But something else has happened in the family. The Catholic Church, for thousands of years, literally, we have always held that the family unit is the essential unit, have we not? Right? And that the church would model what it would be like if we could be in secular world. And in fact, we would model here behavior that we would then go send people out into the world to perform, to do, right? The behavior disciple. We'll get into a little bit next week, but that was it, right? And somehow we dwindled that back to making it look like, appear like the church is just a bunch of rules, but it really isn't, right? Everything that we covered last time, why do we genuflect? Why do we do this? About what sacramental marriage is. And the church has been teaching us through our postures, through our rhythms, a way of life. And the most important way of life is that we gather around the table. That message isn't getting through. Somehow that message isn't getting through. Added to that, we have additional challenges in America, right? The husband and wife married with 2 kids, white picket fence, and a nice cute little dog. That ain't the American family anymore, is it? Right? 49% of our families are ending in, our marriages are ending in divorce. Right now, my wife and I are actively praying for 2. There are 2 marriages of people that are close to us. That marriage is in trouble. And so we're actively praying with them and trying to pray through that and ask the Lord to intercede and that reconciliation can take place. And, the interesting comment I have since, because the wife in one of those relationships said, I've never had an experience like that with my church. And so what do you mean by that? She said, there are other people in my church that know we're going through problems, but why is nobody in my church praying with us? I don't know, but we should. If we, to see to me, defending marriage is a about taking care of those marriages in trouble? Where is the community standing with those husbands and wives and those couples standing in trouble? Right? We need to save that marriage. We need to support that marriage. And so family units come in all sizes. It's great, right? We have a mom, we have a dad, we have kids, and we grow up. And I've said it 6,000 times. Those of you who are married with kids, you probably said it. I will not become my mother or father, right? Until the first time you become your mother and father. And then the second time, the third time, right? But it's all right. We're getting older. We become the way we start. For me, I took on, a lot of what my dad is, except I don't have the Irish accent. But, I kind of become a lot of what my dad has become. And everything was great until I got married, right? And somebody forgot to tell me, when you get married, you don't just marry the person that you are in love with. You get the whole package. Well, that wasn't part of the contract, right? And because part of the package is a whole nother way of doing things, right? And so when you're married, I always remember everything was great. You say, oh, if you're going to both places, until you have kids, and kids don't want to go to two. I don't want to go to grandma. Let's pick one, Or better yet, they just come here, mom, right? And so we have plenty through it. Then parenting, just parenting alone, right? The way I was parented is, of course, the way I'm going to parent, right? Well, my wife has a completely different opinion about how that should be because of the way her parents parented her, right? In my world, I don't understand the concept of if the kids aren't doing something, just go over and turn it off. Like, I don't see the challenge. Well, they won't do it. Pull the plug, man. Like, there's a better way to get at this, right? But that's, you can't yell and scream. Like, yelling and screaming is the only thing that gets through, right? We have blended, and this causes problems. It causes challenges. The church has always stood with us in the midst of those. That's only the married couples. What about the divorced couples? Do they feel welcome in our homes here? If 49% of our population have experienced divorce, are they welcome in our church? Because some don't feel that way. What about some of the other social issues that are going on? The most common, this past week, someone mentioned to me, and they said, because I was talking, I did a parish mission when I was in Dubuque, Iowa, and we got on the topic of family, and one of the families came up afterwards, and they said, this is wonderful, everything you said, but, there's just one thing we're struggling with. I said, sure, what is it? Well, our son is gay, and he's not welcome in the church. And I said, who told you that? So, well, the church did. I said, who told you that? And they said, well, that's what the church teaches. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's not true. That's not a true statement. And yet it's been promoted as that in public, right? In fact, if you open up your catechism book, you'll be able to read it right there, that we are to love all of our brothers and sisters, right? It is a particular physical act that the church stands against, which, by the way, is the same reason non-married couples. I'm filtering my comments because I'm aware of who's my audience, if you haven't figured it out. It's the same reason we're not picking on any issue, we're not anti-something. It's the same issue non-married couples shouldn't either. We don't treat one different than the other because we value that as sacramental, and there's a reason for it. And so if the image is that we are anti any human being, we have a lot of work to be done here. We got a lot of work to be done here. And there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. So here's what I'd love to do. I'd love us to talk a little bit about our own families and family situations. So here's how we're going to do this, not to scare anybody too bad. But what I'd love us to do, in the sake of time, instead of going all over the church, I'd love it just right, nearby. And if you guys couples, you can certainly turn around and talk to other couples. It is okay to talk to them. So what I'd like you to do is just with people that are around you. Okay? Maybe groups of 4 or 5, whatever, not too big, otherwise you'll never get anything accomplished. But with groups of 4 or 5, first thing I want you to do is just turn around. And I want you to talk about what was life like growing up, or for some of wondering, people joining the conversation from your eyes, what's life like growing up in your family? What are your unique family things that you do, or in some cases, mom and dad make you do, right? But what was it like, or for someone, what was it like when you were younger growing up? What was it like to be a member, in my case, of the Curran family, right? The Irish Catholic family. Sunday morning, 8 o'clock church. Saturday night didn't count. 11 o'clock didn't count, for that matter. Sunday morning, right? Said the rosary every night. That's just what the Irish Catholics do. We never ate pasta, ever. Ever. I don't even know if my dad knows what pasta is. It was meat, potatoes, and vegetables on a regular basis, right? And when my wife met me, and she came over to the house, well, besides, which was a little weird, she kept wanting to talk to my dad on the phone, to hear him talk. I thought that was a little weird, but anyway, because he has a girl. And so she would come over and she would, oh my God, you Irish people really do just start randomly singing all the time. I'm like, yeah. And there's usually something in our hand too, but what's the point? And we went back to Ireland. We're sitting in one of the pubs, and the guy just gets up and he walks over, pulls out the accordion, and the whole bar starts singing along. I thought this only happened in television. Like, no, it happens in Ireland. You know, that was my world growing up. That's what I grew up with. Went to Catholic schools my whole life because that's what you're supposed to do, right? That was what it was like. What was it like for you? Share family experience and your little ritual things that was unique to your family with the people around you. We're going to start slow. Okay? So intermix, get to know a couple people, front, back, side. Don't let someone sit by themselves. We learned that last time. Second question I'd love for you to share, just real quick, and this one I really think our young people are going to have great insights in this question here. But I want you all to share. What do you think a normal Catholic family looks like today, 2013? What's a normal Catholic family? What do they do? How do they act? What goes on in their home? How often do they pray? What do you think is a normal Catholic family? Ready, go. Married, and looking at each other. She's got this eye. And he's just like, well, she loves football. Right? In North Carolina, she loves basketball. Anyway, so they're together, and they're all, the world's just, remember, some of you are like, I don't even remember that. They're together, right? And they got to meet with you before they go meet with Father. And this includes teenagers. What would you tell them as they're getting ready to become a new family? What advice would you give them? Ready, go. Who said don't do it? Just want to honor our time, but in your family tradition, I mean, I'd love to get into them because I always love hearing family stories, but I'll let that stay with you. I'm dying to find out, though, what does a normal Catholic family look like? What do you think? Yes. There is no such thing, okay? Because we're all just weird. Give me something that's going on. Yeah. It's a diverse picture, okay? Yeah. The Catholic family looks like the cultural family, okay? Unfortunately.
What is your definition
really busy and we're scattered all over. Now, your question is a great point. How do you define normal, right? Because everything hinges on that, right? And here's the interesting thing. Do you know that most Catholics, when they speak of how they live their faith, they use phrases like, most people today, or most of my friends. Well, you're insinuating that there is some sort of norm here. The average Catholic family looks like you. Oh no, I didn't put makeup on today. It is, and there's a reason why I say that. As I talk to a lot of people about the Catholic family and just, what it's like to be family, there's almost like I've done something wrong response that often comes. Somehow I failed somewhere along the lines. I want to get to that in a second. I want to come back to that in a second. But to pick up the conversation, so if I have a young couple that's sitting here and they want to get married, they're all lovey-dovey at this point, what are you going to tell them? What advice would you give them? Yeah?
Are you really ready to accept this and to go ahead with it? Because if you want to hang with your friends, or you'd rather go out and travel, or you want to go back to school, do you really want to settle down and get married? Because so many marriages end up in divorce after a short while because somebody else wants to do something else.
Yeah. We are the disposable generation, are we not? Right? When I get tired of one model, I'll trade it in and get another. Right? I mean, literally, that's the culture. And is that not what's happening with human beings? I get tired of this model, I'm going to trade it in for the newer. The grass is always greener on the other side until you climb the fence. Right? Sometimes it's jungle over there. Right? But are you ready? And I designed it for, how do you know? How do you know? Yeah.
What are your common interests? Do you both believe in Christ? Do you both believe in His divinity? Are you going to practice your faith? Does that mean anything to you? And if one of those couples says, then they should be getting married. Unless they are unified desire to be. I will never forget we did a priest, Joe Kelly, who was a former Navy captain, and he said, this 50-50 stuff, forget it. If you aren't dedicated to your spouse 100%, you're each trying to satisfy the other 100%, it's not going to work.
Are you all in? Right? All in would be the, and when it comes to our faith, are you all in with the Lord? And again, how do you know? Have you had that conversation? Right? That'd be a question I have. Have you had the conversation?
Partly by what you're doing before you get married. If you're going to daily mass together, it's a pretty good indication that you're on the same page. If you're not,
How many young adult couples are coming to morning mass here? Now, to be fair, a lot of them are working too, right? And so to be fair, sometimes they may want to, it just doesn't really work with work, to be fair. But the reality is, you can take a weekend liturgy. And there are young adults that are here. Sometimes they're harder to see, right? But either way, the point is well taken. Where are you in communication with each other? And where is God in the midst of all of that? And have you had those conversations? And if not, why are you here? Go to Vegas, right? But here we stand for something very particular, right? Someone else, what would you give
Honesty.
Honesty, what does that mean?
Be fair and listen and the truth.
Because everybody says honesty. That's why I throw back at you. Everybody, I want them to be honest. Really? Because I got to tell you, there's a few things I'd rather my wife not tell me. Right? I mean, honestly, right? So what does honesty look like in a relationship? In a real relationship? Yeah. Faithful. You know, I got a buddy, his name is John, and John has this phrase, and I love this phrase, that love me enough to tell me the truth. Love me enough to tell me the truth. Right? We live in an extremely politically correct world, don't we? And in fact, we will call you out if you're not politically correct in today's culture. To say something that is not politically correct, which in truth means media correct. Does it not? Because politically correct actually is a byproduct of the media. Because those sound bites get chosen by an editor. Right? So politically correct, if I am not speaking politically correct, I will be demonized, will I not, in our culture? At some point, maybe that's where the world is. I don't want my spouse to be one of those. I want my spouse to love me enough to speak the truth. And not just, those pants don't look good. Right? Because I tried that once. I told him, you're not going to wear that, are you? Heck yeah, I learned my lesson. But that's not the stuff that we really want them. I mean, we do, well, you women more so than us guys. We don't care if it smells clean, it's good enough for us. But the opportunity on important issues, love me enough to tell me the truth, in particular when I'm moving in the wrong direction. And even if it hurts, you gotta tell me. Because if you don't tell me, who else will? Right? Yeah.
It's a learned behavior, because that's the other point. I'm not trying to go off tangent, but you can tell somebody that, but our kids, speaking for myself, watch mom and dad and how they did it. And as they got older, they understood what was truth and what was, which use your words, politically correct. That's where they learned it. Now we know that they should have, we should have too, got to that honesty that you mentioned with John, but it has to start somewhere, and telling them that based on where they came, maybe they were blessed and had completely honest parents with each other and the kids. My kids didn't have it.
You were at the reconciliation, first reconciliation. I usually, I don't know if I said it here, but I usually sit at the reconciliation talk. I ask all the time from parents. Is there anything I can do to make sure that my kids are faithful? Do I know what they'll look like when they become college students and 20-somethings, right? And it's actually the really is. It really is. And you can know, if your children are younger, you can know what they will look like when they're 25 years old. Just look in the mirror. Literally. The research is so clear that more so than any generation, you see, my generation, we were what were called latchkey kids, right? And so latchkey meaning that both parents typically worked, and we were at home by ourselves. That's where the phrase latchkey came from. And so we separated from our parents. Youth groups were formed as a byproduct of that. Today's generation, that's not the case. Today's generation consistently, when they say who is their role model, consistently it's mom and dad. Consistently. And if you want to know what your child will look like, just look at yourself. Now your point is well taken. How can the church sit here trying to explain reconciliation if they don't see it at all? Let's face it, I mean, you young people here, if you think that, no couples argue, you're crazy. That we all do. It's just most of us are smart enough to close the door, wait till you're asleep. But the truth is, even friends. I argue with my friends too. Not to be mean, it's okay to conflict with ideas. But if the kids never see mom and dad say, I'm sorry. If my children never hear me say, I was wrong, they learn they don't have to say it themselves. Now that's my challenge. You know how hard it is to tell your kid that they were right and you were wrong? But the truth is, once or twice, you kids are right. I know, it's hard to believe once or twice, but the truth is my kids teach me stuff all the time. Most of the time, I admit that to them. Sometimes I don't. I don't want their ego getting too big, right? But the truth is, if my boys don't see me, watch me, hear me, come to them, and apologize when either my behavior, my jumping to conclusion, thinking I knew what this was. If they don't hear me apologize, that's a behavior they don't learn. And our culture doesn't talk about forgiveness. Culture just says as long as nobody's getting hurt, right? To the point of being Catholic. How do we raise Catholic kids? Catholic kids are a byproduct of their parents, if you haven't been. It really is. That said, there are tremendous influences from the outside that have changed dramatically in the last 20 to 30 years. Years ago, when those of us who were older, when you went through formation, Sunday was church day. Nobody questioned it. It was the American way. For every denomination. It wasn't just Catholics. For every denomination. Sunday was church day in America. We were a Christian country. We were mostly Protestant. As we came through the 1920s, 30s, 40s, the Catholics started to grow in population. We began to build what would be known as the Catholic ghettos. And what all that meant was that because Catholics, the immigrant church, was being literally persecuted by the other Christians, in particular those from my heritage, the Irish, the Italians, were all being persecuted for simply being immigrants. Interesting that history is repeating itself. But nevertheless, we built our own subculture. We built our own hospitals. We built our own schools. We built our own cemetery. We would educate our children. We would pull them out of the public school system so that we would create. Catholic schools didn't exist in 1820. We built that. We built that at the turn of the century in order to minister to Catholics in need. And we would take in those children who could not afford it. It was an outreach of the church. Sunday was church day. The American culture were God-fearing, Bible-believing individuals. There was no such thing as making fun of God on the radio and later the television. Unheard of. In fact, some of you are old enough to have watched the show The Honeymooners. You know they didn't even sleep in the same bed, did they? Right? It's almost the same today. In a couple weeks, it would nobody question. Of course City Hall is going to put up a nativity scene. Why wouldn't you? Right? Nobody questioned it. And of course we're going to sing Christmas carols. Because it's about Jesus. What else would it be about? Shopping. What? We said the Pledge of Allegiance. The culture were the underpinnings for that system. Today, we're still trying to teach the same way, except all the cultural underpinnings have gone away. And we're struggling. The reality is that television is a great communicator. And it is a great influence influencer. And guess where we're putting our children? You see the connection? And better yet, not only has the television become the medium to promote secular values, we intentionally put the kids in front of it. And we don't even eat together to have that conversation time as family. So is it really the culture's fault? Or is it ours? Every September and every April, do you know if there's a national turn off the TV week? Are you aware of that? Most kids try not to tell their parents. They talk about it in school. Fascinating. Every year we participated in it. If I had my way, it would be an every week event. Fascinating thing happens. And has anyone participated in that? Has anyone ever done that with your kids? Have you made it the whole week? Some of you are like, we're going home and starting this week. I don't really care. This is what happens. This is just my unscientific observations. What happens at a national turn-off TV week besides the kids whining and squawking about it? It takes about 2 days to detox the kids. And they're squirrely, they're whiny, they're complaining. By day 3, and we do this every year now, for the last several years, same thing happens. By day 3, they're helping do the dishes. By day 4, they're not arguing anymore. In fact, they're almost always helping each other with homework and stuff. We start playing board games together. There's laughter in the house. More importantly, Mom was happy. Because if Mom ain't happy, ain't no one going to be happy. Literally. Do you know what happens come Sunday when they all decide, oh, thank God we made it through the week? Everything goes back to where it was. Television is a tremendous influence. Being Catholic looks like something. See, when we gather in this space, we think we just come here because we're supposed to come here. Do you know that what we do here teaches life? Literally. Do you know that what we do here is the essence of Catholic life, of family life? Literally. In this space, the church has been modeling for us since we were wee little person. But we never picked up on it. Families gather at the table for a reason. You cannot have a community that does not gather. You can't have a family that doesn't eat together. You cannot have a family that doesn't pray together. Families that pray together, it's an old wives' tale for a reason, because it's true. Literally. And the statistics prove it. Families where God is mentioned in a positive way, in their home, on a regular basis. Do you know that those kids tend to do one grade letter better in school? Do you know that they are 15% less at risk for at-risk behaviors? Alcohol, drugs, violence. That divorce drops by 20% in households that attend church weekly together. It drops by 40% in households that attend church on a daily basis, or a minimum of 3 times a week. There's something to it. When we come here and we do this, the first step, most people forget about it. Do you know that this is the Catholic way? This. It's not to stretch. This is literally the posture of servanthood. Healthy marriages come from understanding this. I am to do this for my spouse, and my spouse is to do this for me. We do this because we are honoring God, but it goes all the way back to the days of chivalry, when you knelt before a king because you were not the king's equal. You were to be the servant of the king. And of course, our king is Jesus. And so we think this is, do you know this is a life lesson? Who are the greatest bosses? Those of you who are employed. What are the best bosses? The bosses who take all the credit when things go great and blame everybody when things go wrong? Or the boss who assumes this position? And when things go great, it's because I have a great team. I mean, the people that work here are just unbelievable. I'm servant to you. And when things go wrong, it's my fault. I'm going to take it. I'm servant. Is not a servant leader the best boss to work for? Am I making this stuff up? Is this not what this is about? Have we not been learning this on a regular basis? When a family gathers around the table, do we not share the stories? How many of you were here last time? You loved it, right? You all said you loved it. By the way, how many of you know the name of the person you talked to 3 weeks ago? What happened to all the hands? Right? But what does it mean to be community? Community means we spend time, we actually care about the people that are sitting next to us. You all said 3 weeks ago you loved it. You loved it because you got to be with someone that you had never met before. Those who weren't here, I apologize. But we put people kind of like we did here, but you had to go all over. You meet somebody you didn't know. I gave you 3 random questions, one of which was a challenging question. You interacted nicely, and how was it? That was great. Families have to communicate with one another. What do we do when we come here? We get nourished by the Word. We hear the stories. We tell the stories. Do you know that most kids today could tell you the ancestry of their parents? You know, I'm Italian, I'm German, or I'm a mix of everything, right? But they couldn't tell you the details of how mom and dad met. And do you know that when I ask, if I'm in a room of 100 kids, I'd be lucky to get one that can answer, why does mom and dad believe in God? Even if mom and dad are regular churchgoers, they can't answer that question. Because mom and dad don't talk about that. Now we shared that last session, didn't we? After every miracle, Jesus told them, don't tell anybody, and they told. Matthew 28, after he's come back, he hung out with the boys for a little bit, freaked a few people out, he's getting ready to go back up to heaven, and he says, I want you to go tell everybody. And we tell. So is the Father's fault or is it our fault? So we have multiple breakdowns. We're not meeting as a family. We're spending too much time in front of the television. The television has now become the evangelizer. The television is promoting values that we would not want, that we're struggling with, and yet we don't know. Let's go back to our origins then. Go back to our origins. I'm going to give you one quick tip, and it'll help. If you can use it, God bless you. For those of you who have struggling families and relationships, you have those distant brothers, sisters, children, whatever, God bless you. I'm with you 150%. I want you to try something. For those of you who are sitting here, we're great, we're awesome, we're, last couple weeks I was out with Bishop Pates in Des Moines, Iowa, and I said, Bishop, you're a bishop, I'm Irish, sometimes we talk a little sarcastically. I said, Bishop, I want to challenge you with something, a little bit. I said, you know the Pope, how he's like, Pope France is like challenging everybody, right? He's throwing systems upside down and flipping them. Who is he talking to? Like, who's the clerical church? And he said, well, the church is really divided. I said, you know what I think, Bishop? I think everybody keeps pointing the finger at someone else. See, the people that need to change is always someone else. It's never us. I think the Pope talks to people like me. I think he talks to all of us. We need to get back to our origins. We gather in this space for a reason. If you don't know why we gather here, if you think you gather here because it's Sunday, you don't know why you gather here. When someone asked me last night, I did a catechist training down in New Berlin, in Milwaukee, and I asked the question, when a kid asks you, why do I have to go to church? What do you say? And there were a bunch of responses. People were like, well, it's because this is what I've always done. I said, that's like saying because I said so. Don't give a kid an answer why because I said so. Why do we gather as a community? We gather as a community because the community is going to teach us. It's important to be a part of the community. It's critical, actually. The community is where you learn life. The hodgepodge of life is right here. And so we gather in this space. So here's what I want to offer to you. Actually comes from a friend of mine, John. John is also a speaker. John and I used to do parenting workshops, and so he offers this gift. John was a dad, and John was struggling to have an identity with his children. Kids are kids, and they're all different. He's got 5 kids. He's got 4 girls and 1 boy. And so John was kind of in one of those places where, as the kids get older, they're getting off. Plus, John being a dad, he's struggling to have a relationship with his daughter. His oldest daughter. And so John said, I want to do this. So one night when they were sitting there, and the kids are all, they're watching television, they got their jammies on, and Maggie, she's the cute one, she's got the little pigtails going on the side, right? They brush their teeth, whatever. So they're getting ready to say goodnight. John walks up to his kids. They're all sitting there. He just does this. What's your name? Rose. Rose is not one of John's kids, but we'll go with it. So he does this. Lord, I want you to bless Rose tonight. She's a wonderful girl. That spelling test that she had today, I know she's going to do just well. Give her rest. Give her peace. She's a great person. She's a great girl. I'm so proud to have her as my daughter. Thank you, Jesus, for all that she is. I want you to. There's no roof in this house either, but we'll go with it. Lord, I want you to bless Ruth. Now, tomorrow she's got that huge soccer game, and she's really, really nervous about that soccer game. She's going to do just fine. She's a great team. She's a great leader. We don't have her. I love watching her play. She's such a great leader on that team. Thank you for all that she has become. I want you to bless her with a good night's sleep. I'll get to you later. And he went all the way down the line. He blessed his kids. What do you think his kids were doing? What the heck's up with dad? You've been sucking the cough syrup, right? Right? And so I said, you know, we dads, we are weird every now and again. Dad's just weird, let it go. No big deal. Second night goes by. They got the teeth brushed, jammies. I love those, you know, from the foot, the full body zip up. First that was the donuts, right? And so, sorry, I didn't mean to, jump on your pajama parade here. What's your name? Joyce. Joyce was not one of his daughters, but we're going to go with it. And so the second night, it goes through the same thing. Joyce, she did so great tonight inside. It was just so wonderful to watch her. Thank you, Jesus. The way that she helped that teammate up was absolutely spectacular. I'm so proud of her. I love watching her game. She's just an absolute joy. I got to think I got here. So we went over to his son. What's your name? That wasn't his son either. But okay, one of you, is there a John in here? Or, anyway, so he said, you know, Lord, I just want you to bless him tonight. He has that huge science test, and he's scared. He's scared that he's not fully prepared because he's got to give his first presentation. And he'll be okay. He'll be all right, Lord. I just want you to give him the comfort. Give him a good night's sleep. Let him rest well. No bad dreams. You know, just let him sleep. He's a great son. I'm so proud to have him as a son. He went through, no, it's 2 nights. That's it. And then it was 3 nights. And then it was 4 nights. He said, this just kind of became a gross little thing. And we just kind of did this. He said, everything was great. He said, I knew I was starting to make a connection with my kids when this happened. He said it was Monday night. I wasn't this past one. But it was Monday night. I'm watching the Bears and they're winning. Keep the jokes to yourself. He said, I'm watching the game. And he said, Maggie, who's the youngest one, Maggie comes over. And Maggie says, Dad. And he said, Dad, so hold on 1 second, sweetie. 1 second. Dad, go, great game. Dad, hold on 1 second, sweetie. Just 1 minute. It's almost a commercial. Hold on, dude. Dad, what? I knew what was once weird. Now they couldn't wait to they couldn't go to bed without hearing what was I going to say. He said it was awesome. It became our new tradition. And everything was fabulous. Until Kathleen had a sleepover. But Kathleen was the middle schooler. So Kathleen walks into the room about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the great negotiator. Dad. Did you have a good day today, Dad? Good. Now, Dad, you know my friends come home tonight. Awesome, great. Thanks for letting us have them over. You're such a great dad. Now, Dad, this birthday, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Could you do it now? and Johnson took everything in me. Just hold back. I got to see where this is going. And, you know, Dad, I love it. It's my most favorite thing, and I would love it if you just pray over me right now. He said, well, you don't want to wait till later on? I said, well, I'm sure we'll be off with my friends, and, you know, I don't want to interrupt anything you're doing, Dad. And so, let's just do it now. But, you know, I know it's your thing, and Mom, I already talked to Mom, and Mom said you're going to, you want to pray, so, okay. So, I'm ready. And she assumes the position. John said, I looked at my beautiful child and I said, sweetheart. And he said, I'm trying not to. Sweetheart. I love that you can't wait for me to pray over you. You have no idea how much that means to me. He said, but I can't pray over you right now. And immediately, Kathleen, well, that's okay. If you're really busy, I can come back in 10 minutes. And Kathleen, sweetheart, no. I can't pray over you now. I have to do it later because I have to pray over your friends. It's at that point that Kathleen yelled out the scream, "Mom!" Ran upstairs. John said, the girls all came over later on, and they do, sleepover is only a technical word, first of all. And so they all come over and they go, whatever it is, the girls go out sleepovers. And they're up in their room, they're making all the noises. So it was 5 the other day. So he said, it's time for bed. And the other four got their jammies on. Now he said, thankfully, my daughter, even though she's in middle school, has no concept that mom and dad are on the same team. Okay? So he said, so we played off, I played off my life. So he said, we go up the stairs and I pray over all four and give a kiss and hug and night. But Kathleen refused to come out of her room all night upstairs. She would not open the door, and she had told her friends they were not allowed to leave the room because the door would open. And so John says, so I recruit my wife and we go upstairs, and my wife knocks on the door, and I'm hiding on the side of the wall. He said, who is it? Oh, it's just Mom, sweetheart. I'm just checking to see how you're doing. Is Dad out there? No, Dad's not around. I just want to say, okay, you open the door. So they open the door, and of course John says, ah! Kathleen jumps under the sheets and hides under the sheets. So John walks up to girls, having fun or whatever. So, I know Kathleen's clearly a little embarrassed, but one of the things that we do in our house is that I pray over all my children before you go to bed, and I'd like to pray over each of you. Not that you really have a choice, but so he walks up to her, what's your name? Janet, because I had no idea Janet was one of her friends. But so he walks up and he says, Lord, I just want to give thanks for Janet tonight. She is an amazing friend to Kathleen. She is so wonderful. She is like another daughter in this house. She comes in, she helps herself to our refrigerator. She is always welcome in this house. And we love having her. She's a great influence on our daughter. Thank you. Thank you for bringing her into our daughter's life. And so he walks up, and we'll keep on listening. Peter was not one of the girls. And so God is going to bless Peter, and because Peter is just such a great friend of my daughter, but they're not allowed to date. But Lord, I want you to watch over her. And he would go on. He went and he blessed every one of the friends, the soccer teammates, the way that and he prayed out loud for them. And Kathleen did not come out from under the sheet, and so he just prayed over the sheet. He said, I left and I went downstairs, and we left the girls back to whatever these girls were doing. He said about an hour and a half later, my wife and I are downstairs, we're watching a movie downstairs in the family room. And one of Kathleen's friends came downstairs, as the kids always did. They walked in the kitchen, they helped themselves, they got something to drink out of the refrigerator. It wasn't a big deal, they do it all the time. He said it was great. But when the friend went over and got something to drink, and on the way back, before going upstairs, she stopped and saw us in there. She walks in the room, knocks on the walls, and, Mr. Grossman, can I ask you something? I said, sure. Before, when you were upstairs, that thing you did, you were talking out loud, you had your hands over I'm sorry, sweetheart, I wasn't trying to embarrass you. No. Actually, I thought it was pretty cool. But that stuff you said about how I'm always welcome in this house and how I'm like another daughter to you, did you mean that? He said, well, of course I meant that. We do. We love having you around. You're a ton of fun. You give it back to us as much as we give it to you. You're great with the jokes. We love having you. And honestly, you're a great friend. Of course you're welcome in this house. Why do you have? I've just never heard that from my parents. And I just thought it was really cool that you did that. And she just took her glass and went upstairs and just walked away. He said, as a dad, I'm so proud, because literally what started in a very simple, honest way. I wanted to draw a connection with my children. And I used the church as an example. And I drew a connection with my kids. Now all of a sudden it was filtering into my kids' friends. And he said, so that kind of became our way. That just became our Catholic thing to reunite a family that was becoming divided. We did something that the church had been doing for years. We extended our hands. I prayed out loud. And he prayed out loud because John knew what I've known and what lots of other people know. 87% of our self-talk is negative. 87% of the time, I'm not smart enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not qualified enough, I'm whatever. 87% of our self-talk is negative. So that's why out loud, John had to overcome what the secular world was teaching the kids. So he said it out loud. And he prayed over it because he learned it from the church. Why does it have to be held here? So John prayed out loud, and he said that kind of became our way. And he said, one night my wife came up to me and she said, you know, John, I've never thanked you for what you've done for this family. I have watched over the last several months. I've watched the way that you've prayed. I've listened to what you've said. And it makes me so proud as a mom to know our kids can't wait to hear what Dad has to say. And I don't think I ever thanked you for that. And I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for being the spiritual leader of this house. But I do have a question for you. How come you never prayed over me? John said, you know, it was not, that was not in his mind. He did it with the kids. It never, it wasn't anti-wife. It was just, I never even heard of. So he said, so that night I prayed over my wife. And my wife prayed over me. We've been doing that ever since. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to go to sleep angry at someone you've just prayed over? Honestly, why do you think the church teaches us those things? Why do you think the sign of peace happens before the Eucharist? The Eucharist, and we're going to talk about this next, the Eucharist only makes sense if you get reconciliation. That if we as families don't do something to overcome it, we're never going to get to a place where we can unite our families again. The world is dividing our families because we're allowing them to be divided. Whether we're divorced or not, whether we have kids that have gone astray or not, the first and most important thing you can do is hug them. Hug and love them. Reaffirm out loud because the world is convincing them of what they should look like. And what they should look like is computer animated. It's not real. But they think it's real. And so when we gather in this space, they think this is useless, this has nothing to do with life. Well, it has everything to do with life. Being Catholic looks like something. Being Catholic requires something. Being Catholic means something, and it's all what Jesus taught us at the Last Supper. Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the strength to let you be my servant too. Sacrament of marriage, right? We are pilgrims on a journey. We are travelers on a road. Pray that I may have the strength to let you be my servant too. Let's go. Let's go. Tonight I invite you when you go home, pray over someone. If you don't have someone to pray over because you live by yourself, go next door. Knock on the door, 3 times. If you want to seek a little bit of revenge, tell them that it's the angel of death knocking on your door. No, don't do that. Pick up the phone and call someone. See, everybody here knows somebody. Everybody here knows somebody. we need to reconcile. I'm not worried, I'm really not. I'm not worried about whether our kids will fall in love with the church. I'm not worried about them not coming anymore. I've read the book, we win. Okay? I've read the story. We win in the end. I'm not worried about it. What I'm absolutely worried about at this point in history is we stop loving each other. And it starts at home, with the family. If your kids have moved out of the home, call them tonight. Call them. And you say, I need to tell you I love you. Pray for them over the phone. If it's weird, so what? What's the downside? They think you're weird? What's the upside? They think you're weird. What's the upside, though? Healing can only begin when the first step is taken. If you go home tonight and you have kids at home and maybe you're struggling, you have that teenager, that because they're getting older, because they're getting independent, they are getting a little more independent, sit at the side of the bed and just hug them. Just hug them. Our young people need to be hugged. They need to be loved. They just need to know, you know what, if I make a mistake, don't yell at me. You know what, Mom, Dad, you make mistakes too. And it's true. We did. But I need to know that you're in my corner. And I'm not perfect. But I don't need someone to judge me. I got plenty of those in the world. I need someone to guide me. I need someone to love me. And I need to know you love me. And if you are so blessed and you have one of those beautiful little babies at home, you just rock that baby. You rock that baby and know that God has graced you with a miracle. And you get to rock a miracle. Every night when I would rock, I'd sing to my babies. And I'd sing Irish lullabies because that's what I knew growing up. That's all I knew was Irish lullabies. And I just rock and I rock. And we'd stay in a rocking chair and that's where I fell asleep. Being Catholic means something. If we can heal the family, we will heal the church. Amen? My hope for you, and I know tonight was different, but it was different for a reason. And next week, when we are in Elkhart Lakes, right? One lake. We're at the lake in Elkhart with a little race car that goes around it. We're really going to get into some practical tips and tricks. Okay, but tonight, I gave you one. I want you to go do that with your family. It's both mine and John's permission. Please use it. Alter it, change it, make it your own, but have some family tradition. Adults, you need to be the spiritual leaders of your home. If you are not, reclaim it. It's what you put into at baptism. Amen? Amen. God bless you. You guys have a wonderful night. I'll sing that for you. Where are our birthday people? I'll sing to you three. What's your name? Curran.